Hello, readers. I'm Jessie. I'm here to recommend some books with transgender protagonists for you to read. This way you can spend your time looking at a book and not paying attention to your Pokemon. Not that anything would happen to them, of course. Ah ha 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 ha.
My teammate James and I play with gender all the time, so I'm a great person to give recommendations for this.
Some of these stories are for very young children, if you want to educate them about gender. And then there's books for teenagers, and then books for adults as well. So there should be something for everybody on this list. I'm going to start off listing books with trans boys as main characters, and I'm going to go in order from the one I liked the least to the one I liked the most. Between Perfect and Real by Ray Stoeve, not sure how to say that, was my least favorite. It had a boy in high school. The reason that I did not like that one is because he was very self-absorbed and all worried about his own problems and his own identity. And that is what the book is about, and that's age appropriate, sure. But he had this friend, a best friend, very supportive with everything that he was going through, and he was never there for his friend. Never did any nice gesture for his friend, planned a nice day, made a nice meal or gift, or asked, "What are you going through? How can I support you?" Nothing. So just took and took the support and didn't give anything back. And I really value my friends. So I did not appreciate that at all. Chosen family is very important. So I couldn't really root for that character. The next book was Of the Wild by Elizabeth Wambheim. I am not doing well with these names. In my world, I have to figure out the names of all these different Pokemon, but all these last names of humans are really giving me a hard time today.
Good thing I care more about my own comfort and convenience than offending anyone. Ha 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 ha!
So in this Of the Wild book, the character is an adult, although it is perfectly appropriate for teenagers who want to read it. The adult character goes into the forest and meets someone who's essentially a foster parent, children that get kicked out of their homes and get adopted by this creature. Their relationship, the transgender human and this being, is emotionally romantic, but it is asexual. So I think that could be good representation for a lot of people. The thing is, the plot is very weak. The villains are these beings called the Tall Ones that want to just take the children away. It's never really explained who they are or why they want that. And there's so many children in a very short book that the character development is pretty weak on that. It would be better to have if you're going to have a small word count, you should have a smaller cast of characters. And you also should do some more explanation of your villains. A story is only as good as their villains. Stranger Than Fan Fiction by Chris Colfer, who is known for being Kurt on Glee. I can admit someone with multifaceted talents, being someone like that myself. Stranger Than Fan Fiction is a young adult contemporary drama. There are five perspectives. One of them is a trans character. Another is someone who would be probably considered bi or pan, the love interest of the trans person. And then another point of view character is gay. And they're going on a road trip to do nerdy things. And things do work out for most of the point of view characters. But if you want a happy ending for everybody, this is not the book for you.
If you want to protect your heart from devastation, you may want to skip this one and eat a smorgasbord instead.
Next, we've got Magical Boy by Vincent Kao. This is a duology of graphic novels about a teenage boy who is coming into his powers of being a magical girl. But as he keeps telling his family, he's not a girl. And his mother has a hard time accepting this. There are also other queer side characters. So it's a fun way to incorporate transgender identity with the popular common magical girl trope. I've always found that girls that are a little bad is more my speed, but if it's for you, obviously these are recommendations for you, then you would like it because it's lighthearted and funny. Now we're getting into the books that I liked more instead of felt lukewarm about. Annie's Plaid Shirt by, no, I forget the author. Well, I'll put it up here anyway. It is a book for preschoolers about being true to yourself and wearing what makes you feel comfortable instead of what others want you to wear. And James and I are all about having fun with your wardrobe. Cemetery Boys by Aiden Thomas is a young adult fantasy about a trans boy in Los Angeles. He is Hispanic, and his family is most of his family, because he's a very large family, is not supportive of his identity in the beginning. And he's coming into his powers dealing with the dead, right? Spirits that might be restless. If they start to become aggressive, then they need to be getting help passing on to the next plane of existence. And he comes across a spirit of his classmate, but his classmate's not dead, but his classmate is missing. So he says, "Well, you must be, lost or kidnapped, and your body's unconscious somewhere. I have to reunite your spirit to your body, lest you really do die." So there's this mystery going on, and obviously romance between the transgender boy and then the ghost boy, who's not really a ghost, right? Because he's not dead. Something that was very fun about this is the protagonist's supportive cousin is a vegan, and so she refuses to do any magic involving blood because it goes against her beliefs. And that was just a fun way to incorporate that into a fantasy setting that I'd not seen before. The reason why I just liked this book quite a bit and I didn't love it is because the ending is quite preachy. Remember how I said that not everyone in the family was accepting? Well, then there's someone in the family giving a whole speech about acceptance. And I think it was probably sort of self-healing for the author. James would know all about having parents who are not supportive of you being the way you are, and maybe it would be really nice to hear, but I think having really long lecture for one character to be giving others, which is essentially lecturing the reader, is unnecessary. That's what theme is for, right? Just you're supposed to be able to interpret the theme, not have it spelled out for you in a really long monologue. So I did like the book, and I do recommend it. But if you don't want a long, preachy speech at the end, because I don't like to be lectured on morality myself, then that would be the only real deterrent for it.
It's also very obvious from the second chapter who the villain is, so the book doesn't pull off a sneaky plot twist like I can.
Caroline's Heart by Austen is a historical fantasy for adults. It is set in the United States during the 1800s in the Old West, and the main character is a trans cowboy, and he is working for a witch. He winds up feeling like he owes her for saving his life. She's trying to perform a spell to resurrect Caroline, hence Caroline's Heart. And I don't want to go into much more detail about it because it is a novella. I would not describe it as particularly graphic in the steamy department, but there is one scene like that towards the end. My favorite book on the list with trans boys is The Passing Playbook by Isaac Fitzsimons. It is a young adult contemporary about a biracial trans boy on a soccer team, and he has a crush on one of his teammates. The problem is that this boy is not out to anyone on his team, not his teammates, not his coach, so he feels like he can't romantically pursue anyone while being in the closet like that, because at his previous school he'd been out and it hadn't gone well, so he doesn't want to do that again. But of course, things happen in this, and the way that people find out and how they react, I felt was very realistic. The way that people might be supportive, the way they might want to be supportive, but they feel like they can't because of their own families preventing them. And it is a romance, so you can be assured it'll have a happy ending of sorts. But I did appreciate that the relationship is not rushed at all in terms of emotion, but also in terms of physical intimacy. Sometimes romances can be kind of fixated on that, and I appreciated this wasn't, especially for characters who are younger, acknowledging that not everybody rushes that part of a relationship. Something that I've noticed in reading these sorts of books is that it's much easier to find a protagonist that is a trans boy or man instead of a trans girl or woman. And that goes to the silly idea that femininity is inferior, but hopefully more people will be writing about this in the future. The first recommendation was not one I particularly loved, but I do think a lot of other people would enjoy it, would be Pet by Akwaeke Emezi. It is young adult taking place in a sort of utopian future where there's not any prejudice and the main girl, her mother's a painter, and sometimes her mother's paintings come to life. It's a magical realism genre more than a fantasy because that's the only fantasy element, and they never explain why that happens, and no one else has powers, and no one's curious about it. No one will question it. So it's just accepted that sometimes her mother's artwork comes to life. The creature that comes to life warns the protagonist that there is some kind of monster amongst them, even though it's supposed to be a utopia. So there's a little bit of a mystery going on as to what is happening. And who's doing it? What is a monster? And it does get into pretty emotionally heavy things. It is appropriate for teenagers, but if you're someone who needs content warnings for things, then this would definitely be one where you should look them up. The Ratcatcher's Daughter by KJ Charles is for adults. It's the standalone prequel novella in the Lily White Boys series. It takes place in historical England with a trans woman and a cis man. They have an asexual romantic relationship. The plot is very clear and concise. It really focuses on the characterization and the plot. There's not much development of the setting and the theme. It does work on its own. It won't end on a cliffhanger, so you won't have to read the rest of the series about the other queer characters if you're not interested. Now, I do have a bonus recommendation since the transgender identity of the character is more allegorical than literal in this one. Witch Boy by Molly Knox Ostertag is a middle grade graphic novel. It's about a boy from a family where boys shapeshift and girls perform magic. But he can do spells rather than shapeshift because he has the soul of a witch. It shows the boy saving the day with the help of his non-magical friend and his family learning to accept him. I hope there was a recommendation on this list that was appealing to you. Be sure to like this video if you want to see this channel make more videos like this one. Subscribe if you want to see more, and comment below if you have any further recommendations of books with transgender protagonists. Make sure that you're not concerned about your Pokemon at all as you read your books.
Time for me and the rest of Team Rocket to blast off.
Happy reading!